Hello, my lovely lemon drops. It's Rex here, and I'm gonna teach you how to thread any sewing machine. I'm gonna teach you the techniques that are applied to both industrial and home sewing machines, so you should be able to just figure out any machine that you come upon. However, I heavily suggest that you either get out if you still have it or find it on the internet, the manual, and usually it's as simple as a Google search. So just do it. Just trust me. Get the manual, get to know your machine. A lot of problems are solved by just rethreading the machine. So there's another tip for you. If there's any issues with your machine, just try rethreading it. Just take the thread completely out, rethread it. The tools that you will need for this, I highly recommend a pair of tweezers. They have a lot of names: medical, angled, bent, long, embroidery tweezers. It's kind of important that they're long, but any tweezers is better than none. And a small pair of scissors. You could use big scissors, but it's a lot easier to get the nimble little ones in small places. So if you don't have either of these things, I sell them. It's called the Crafter's Leash. If you would like one of those, DM me and we'll coordinate that. This is a lock stitch machine. It's a Juki. This is a serger. This is a Juki. This is the same as home machines. And lastly, here's my home sewing machine. It's an embroidery machine, but I will teach you how to thread it as well, because there's just a little bit of different, but it's a lot easier on home machines. Again, same techniques though. Okay, first I'm just gonna show you the path, and then we'll undo it and start from scratch. So this is called a thread tree. On all the machines, here's a thread tree. This has 4 cones of thread. Could do 3. This one has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course the home machines have 1. That goes here. If there's more than one place to put the thread, you can assume that the one closer to the machine is for the machine and the one farther away is for the bobbin winder. And I'll show you how to thread that too. So it first goes up into the thread tree, and you should never have something stuck behind it like I had there. Make sure it can move freely. And it's always gonna go back to front. And that is a general rule for tension hole. And then there's usually some sort of post like this. Start from the top, going down, back to front, and go around, go back to front again. And then here's our first tension wheel. You can kind of guess that obviously it's gonna go into this one first and not this one first, so thread it back to front through the guiding hole. And then this is a tension disc, so you need to make sure that you get it in between the tension disc. Now this one, you're gonna wanna do front to back, because if you did back to front, that would clearly be kind of awkward and it just doesn't look like it goes that way, right? Then next, it'll go around the second tension wheel. Again, make sure it gets in between the tension discs. And then it needs to go around this little lever here. This little lever goes like this. And then down around this. And then up, right to left through this. Can't remember what it's called right now. Down to another guide. This one you can just kind of pop in. This is another tension guide. Then there's often 2 holes here, one at the top of this transition area, and then one right above the needle. And for industrial machines, you thread from left to right, like you read. But if this is a home machine, you would thread from front to back. I'll go over that real quick too. So generally, there's at least 1, if not 2, place to put your thread. And on this one, there's the thread trees right here. And because it's like sideways and supposed to be all jazzy, it's got a little lid for it just to keep it from bubbling off the spool there. I use cones. These are all my cones here. I have a lot more, but this is what I've got right now for embroidering. And there's a little trick. You can put it in a cup, a jar, something that's kind of sturdy. As you can see, he's got little feet that kind of fit on this lip. So if it pulls a little bit, it's a little stronger. It won't just pull out. So that's an option for you if you're not using tiny spools that you can, and like you're using cones, you can use a cup. And then you still need something to hold tension for you though. And here this is the bobbin winder, but you can, I'm using this as like a tension thing. So just find something on your machine that can hold tension from your faraway cup. Normally, it would start on here, and then you could go straight to here. But with a cone and a cup, I have a tension area, and then this kind of keeps it in there, you know? Got kind of clever with that. And then it starts here. And in a lot of machines, you're gonna have, like home machines, you're gonna have pictures like this right on the machine. So definitely use this as a resource. Again, look at the manual, because sometimes things are just not intuitive. Or you get confused, because you're like, what is this for? This is for winding the bobbin, and it's not something you're gonna use regularly if you're just sewing. So 1, it says go under this little hook. 2, it says go around this little finger, right? And the dashed line is telling you how to do a bobbin. The straight line is telling you that it needs to go down in here. So it goes down in here, around this thingy, and this is very similar to the other machine. It's just kind of covered in plastic. And then as you can see, there's this, I'll move it for you so you can see what I'm talking about and try to get a little to the side here. There's like a little finger, a little metal finger that moves, and you just gotta hook it around this. So as you can see, 5 was to go through there, 6 is to get hooked in this little eyelet here, and you come in from the right, you don't have to thread this one, and then front to back through the needle. So now I'm gonna unthread the machine and start from scratch. Sure that there's no tangles or wraps around the bottom or the tree or anything. And this is where your snips come in. Cut a nice clean end there so that you'll have an easier time poking through the hole. So here we go, we're gonna start from the cone back to the front. So now that we're through this hole here, it's gonna go to this little guy here. You might be able to tell there's a hole here and a hole here, and they're going like this. So you'll wanna go back to front on the top hole. So go top from bottom, back to front. Carefully go through the front hole, and then go back around, just right back to front, to the second one. And this is where the tweezers come in if things get kind of difficult for you. Make sure that you didn't tie a knot or anything in there. As you can see, back to front, around, back to front. All right, and then from here, we'll go here. There. All right, and then just pull it through. Don't worry about the disc. Go right through the next hole. And again, this one's a little bit different. You don't want to go back to front with this one. It's clear that it's a front to back situation. These are rare, but they do happen. And if you ask me, that's pretty clear. I think you'll be able to tell. So I pulled it through, but clearly you don't want to go through this side of the wheel. That's not going to work, right? If you tighten this, it's not going through the wheel. So intuitively, it needs to go around the wheel like that. And again, make sure you're between the tension discs. The next thing, you're just gonna kind of go around like this. They're all generally in this sort of movement. Don't get fooled by this one. We're not going to that one yet. We're gonna go around the wheel, in between the discs. And this is kind of the tricky part on industrials, is that you need to get around this little lever. And then around this one. And then you can hook in that one. And it's like, if you've got tweezers like this, you can really maneuver these. And once you do this a few times, you'll realize how intuitive it is, because what you're trying to do is create tension on this thread so that it'll create nice, beautiful stitches. If this little guy moves with a gentle tug like this tension is probably right. No guarantees, but probably right. Okay, we're gonna go next through this guy. And this is a right to left situation. It's all on this little lever, it's always like that. From here to here, down to the needle, you'll kind of see it's just obvious. There's a little thread catch right there. There's another one behind this tension plate. Okay, so after this little tension plate here, there happens to be another thread guide here and here. This thread guide here is very easy to use. You just slip it behind there and it's threaded. This one has a hole, so we actually have to thread it. And then you can thread the needle. Industrial machines, thread left or right. Make sure it doesn't get wrapped around the needle like that just happened. Just pull it out like that. And if you're having trouble getting the thread to go through the needle, you can lick your thread or cut it to have a nice crisp end. There you go. There you go. And then whenever you're going, be sure to slip it underneath the toe. This is the bobbin winder. On industrial machines, you can wind a bobbin while you are sewing, so they give you another setup in order to do that at the same time. So just like the regular one, it goes on the little spool up to the thread guide, back to front, and then it goes over. Just like all the tension discs, there's two holes, one on one end, one on the other, and you know, it's pretty obvious that you're going to go back to front on this one, and then right to left on this one, just whatever it needs for that particular design. And then you need to go in between the tension discs, and of course you can adjust the tension by tightening or loosening these, but be very careful. Don't only do that if you know what you're doing. We can talk about that in another video. Put a bobbin on the bobbin thing, and if it's a home machine, you'll need to push it over, but this one you don't. And you'll wind it around the bobbin. It works either way, either direction, counterclockwise or clockwise. Just pick what way that's intuitive to you, and then clip it closed. And then as you sew, that will thread. If you're not gonna sew while you thread your bobbin, you need to find the lever in the back of your machine and lift up the feet, the presser foot, so it doesn't grind against the feed dogs. And that's true in all machines. And when you're done, this will pop open and it won't spin anymore. And then you can just cut it on the thread cutter right there. And then you're done. New bobbin. This one real quick, but it's much faster, much easier. All home machines are pretty much designed to be a breeze. So if you're using a cone like me, set up your cup, find yourself something to use for tension. It doesn't even have to be on the machine. It can be a hook on the wall. It can be anything. If you're concerned about this and your setup, talk to me, email me, DM me, we'll talk about it. Okay, so that's how this is a bobbin winder normally, or it'll put it in its little thread tree, put the little lid on, and off we go. First, pop it in a little thread guide here. Oop. Wrap it around this one, go down, C3, 4, and it's usually real. Yeah, see how easy that was to catch? I don't usually have a problem with it. 5, and see if I could do this with one hand. Just pop it in like that. Be careful, I've definitely cut the thread doing that. You just gotta kind of tug it to pop it into difficult thread catches like that. Cool. Now for this one, for 7, you put it in this little thingy, and I'll show you. You just press this little lever here. Boop-a-doo. It doesn't work in the stage it's in right now, so never mind. It works, but different circumstances. Okay, so this is a home machine, so you'll definitely want thread from front to back. I'm old and shaky, so I have to use a pair of tweezers. This thread needs to be cut. There you go. In some industrials that are not computerized and in home machines, when you sew something and you replace the bobbin, you need to pull that thread up from below. And you do that by lifting the presser foot, using the flywheel with your hand, manually do 1 stitch, and then pull the tail. And if you look closely underneath there, there's that little loop that you've pulled up, and you can use a tool if you want and pull it out of there, and make sure that both are off going to the left and are under the presser foot, and you're ready to sew. Okay, so this is my industrial Juki serger, but this serger is almost entirely the same, if not harder to thread than home machines, which often have a lot of easier things to do, and you don't have to actually thread, you just have to hook. So keep in mind, this is a situation in which you have to have some sort of manual. And I will show you that on a lot of sergers, the manual is right here. You just got to open this little door. The door opens, it's on a hinge, opens like that. It's even color coded for you. If you are unsure which thread is which, that's what we're gonna go over now. So you can see that there's like 5 lobes on this tree. You can use most sergers as 3 or 4 thread if they've got the 4 thread capacity. But if you're going to use not going to use the 4th thread, you need to take the needle out of that position or use a broken one. A lot of people find that taking a needle out of the 4th position when it has one causes problems. So if that's causing problems, try to use a broken needle in its position instead. If you use a 4th thread, or if you use a needle in the 4th thread when there's no thread in there, it will just poke holes in your garment and cause other issues. Up here, this is kind of confusing, but you'll kind of understand that there's only one way for this to go. So we'll go over that. Just generally, you want 2 on this side and 2 on this side. The first one on your left is going to be your left stitch. This is just a stitch to hold things together. That's all it does. So if you do 4 threads, you can consider that sewn together and finished at the same time. That's why sergers are amazing. Or you can just finish edges with a 3 thread. This does not have structure. If you only use 3, there's no structure, it won't hold together. You need that 4th one. This is the anchor thread. This is also a top thread. They call it the top thread. It anchors the 2 looper threads, which are on the right. All right, I'm gonna do my best to show you this 1 thread at a time. Okay, so we'll do the first thread. Pull it off the cone. And look at your tree and see kind of what makes sense. For this one, I'm just gonna put it on this outermost hole on this lobe here There, that one started. Second one, there's a hole in the outermost lobe. I'm gonna go through that one. Front to back, and then there's a hole in this lobe for this back thread to go through. And then it's ready. There's another hole here that if you find things are getting tangled, you can use that, but I don't recommend it unless you're troubleshooting. Same with this one. You want to do the back looper over here. There's one hole on this lobe, thread it through, and then the inside hole on this lobe, and it's ready. And then this last one just goes on the outmost hole on this lobe, and it is ready. Yeah. Now we're moving down to the little Y thread guide here. These have holes, 2 holes in each section. There's holes for 4 threads, and there's a hole that goes up and down like this, and a hole that goes side to side like this. Up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side. So you'll always want to do the up and down first, and start, left to right like you're reading. Through up, down to the first hole, then go from the back to the front on the second hole. If you see any sort of twists or knots or anything, clear that up. And then do the same thing for all holes. Top to bottom, back to front. Oops. And if you struggle with this, get your tweezers out. Cut your thread, get a nice sharp end. This machine is by far the hardest to thread, but also the easiest to stay threaded. So if the unhappy mistake happens that it becomes unthread, it is a bummer, but most of the time that doesn't happen. Okay, so this is where things get hairy. If you need to change your thread, this is a good place to do it, right here. You could also do it up in the tree too, but just snip the thread, put your new thread in, tie a knot, and you can pull it all the way through. With sergers, you can just sew through, but you take the risk of it unthreading itself. And every other machine, you need to pull the knot through before you sew, or it will cause problems. Okay, so here's where that Y was. All the threads are hanging down. We're gonna go to their corresponding spots on the serger. Okay, so I pulled everything out of the way. Your manual can tell you if you don't know how to do that. On mine, there's just a little lever. It releases this guy, and then you can just open this guy. He's just a cover to protect everything. And then you can use your flywheel to move your needles up and down, or you're gonna need it for rethreading the loopers and such. Be sure to consult your chart because it'll tell you all the holes that you're supposed to hit, but also you can kind of guess. So I'm going to start with the hard ones first, the loopers. That's on the far right. String comes down, and the first hole, thread guide, right there, pops on through. And it is absolutely not possible to thread a serger without tweezers. So, and while you're back there, if you see that first thread guide, might as well pop through there. Pull a little extra down so it doesn't keep pulling against you like it was doing to me. There we go. See? Now, I tend to not worry about the tension disc until it's through the second hole. This one's front to back. They vary. We've talked about it. There we go. And then when you're pulling it tight, you can take the opportunity to guide it behind the tension wheels. There we go. Do not touch these. They're like really hard to fix if you do, if they become messed up. So don't touch these. All right. Now, you'll notice there's only 2, and And this might be a situation to be like, wait a second. Okay. The top two, the left two threads only go up here. So that's an indicator that we'll go with the right one. Cool. Find it, pull it through, and oh, what do you know? There's another hole right there. And it's on my little chart. That hole there, that hole there. And if it helps, use different colors so you can keep it straight. You're trying to work towards the needles over here. So, there's one here, but that goes to that one. Oh, there's one here. There's one here. There's one here. But this looks kind of weird. I'm gonna look at my thing down on my chart and see what the deal is. I go through this one like this. And that one, but there's 2 holes on each of these thread guides, so I'm going to go on the outermost one. Woohoo! So this one's kind of confusing. Do we go right to left? Check my chart. Yes, we do. Right to left, through that one. And then this is the lower looper. So it's the one that has this like crane neck, right? First, you're gonna go front to back. And then this is where things get really, really tricky. And in home machines, they have tricks for this. They have little like helpers. So don't fear. If you have a home machine, your home machine will help you through this part. If you are like me and you have an industrial machine, this is where things get very hairy. So what you'll do is you'll thread front to back through that hole, and you'll need to come in from this side. Let's see if I can show. Here, I'll see if I can move it so you can see. There he is. So from here, you'll find the thread over here and thread it back to front again, and then you'll have to move it back to the other side. So find it and thread it front to back through here and then out. Like I said, a little tricky. Okay, so let's do the second thread. Second from the right. This is the upper looper. Goes through this top one here, then here, and again, I don't worry about the tension disc until I'm through the second hole because it'll just come undone. Sometimes I wish I had 2 tweezers, which is not a bad idea. 2 little climpy fingers. Okay, and as I tighten it and make sure it doesn't get caught on anything, and then it slides between the tension discs. Woo! Then I go through this guy. And you might need to use the weight of the thread itself to get it to go through the hole. Pull all the way through. There's your next tension hole, and then we're gonna go through the 2 inner holes here, and then this one. One, and always pull tight after each hole. It's best to get an idea of if you've twisted or anything like that, because it's really hard to fix once you've moved on to the next hole. So stay on the right side. So you can pull this a little bit. Careful not to unthread anything, just to get it out of your way. Can see I'm on the wrong side of that, so I'm going to fix that real quick. There we go. Now I've given myself a little more space to get through this hole. There we go. Take your time. It's going to take a while. Get zen with it. Okay. Now tighten that other one up so it doesn't get tangled. There we go. Now this guy. welcome. Okay, so if you had just finished with the lower looper, move it out of the way and the upper looper in. There you go. So if you can see, there's a little pocket hole right here. And you're gonna go from right to left through that pocket hole and then front to back through the hole at the end there. This one's relatively easy, so don't worry about it too much. Just adjust it to what works for you, where you can get your tweezers in there, and definitely remember to cut the end so it's nice and crisp. And in pocket holes like this, you might need to lick it. It might need the strength of the saliva. So lick it about an inch into the thread. And if you're ever having trouble with threading, just lick the end. It's truly what all the professionals do, even in school. They're like, yeah, lick the end. There's nothing quite like it. Okay, so I got through that hole, and then there's no way I can even reach the other one, so I gotta pull it down. I'm shaking like a leaf here, so steady yourself. Pull it through just enough that it won't fall through, and then you need to pull it from behind. Find it, and you might need to like help it from the other side. That's okay. Okay, I found it. And then pull it through so it's behind the needles and off to the left. Woohoo, that one's done. And you'll do the same thing with the other looper. I don't think I covered that. So if you see, it's coming out here and behind it, and here's the thread right here for that one. It's off to the left. Very hard to see. Okay, so those bottom two loopers, the hardest are over. They're done. Put them off to the left. Woohoo. Pat yourself in the back. You did it. Now we're going to thread the second from the left. Starts here. After you go through this one, you will need to go around this tension wheel, but skip it for just a second. And we're gonna go through this thread guide, but there's two. There's one on top and one on bottom. The one on top goes to the first thread, and the one on bottom goes to the second thread because it's closer to the middle, right? Through there, and then pull it so you're almost the way through, and then once it's shorter, you can guide it between the tension discs. And then for this bit here, there's a hole here, there's a hook and another hole, and again, something like this is really unique to the machine. So something like this would be important to look at the chart, either the manual or if it's not inside the door. All right, and then right here, there's two holes. And then there's this tension plate here. But there's also a thread guide here, and again, both this thread and the first thread go through here. They share the same hole. While I'm at it, I'm going to slip this behind the plate, and then there's a little hook here. And again, this is in the chart. All of this is in the chart. But just to be, intuitive about this, that's how it would go. All right, and then the last step is to go through the needle, front to back on these, like a home sewing machine. Even with a pair of tweezers, it's difficult. And then pull it all the way through, pull it taut, and then off to the left with the other threads. Okay, let's do the last one. It's the first thread on the left, and from the thread tree up there, so from the little arm, it's gonna go down to this tension disc. It's gonna go in this hole, around, and out this one. Go through the top hole here, do the same hole, over the hook, same hole, left hole there. Again, I'm going to go through this thread guide here behind the plate, and on this side there is a hole right here. So we're going to go through that thread guide and then front to back. The edge of the tension plate, there's this little corner, this little dog-eared corner, and that's to help you slip the thread right underneath the plate. There we go. Okay, pull it all the way through and make sure it doesn't get caught on anything. Pull the threads together, all 3 or 4 of them, to be under the foot and off to the left, and then lock that back in place. If you've got a lever, put the lever back down, or however yours works, close that up. It's very, very important to test if it's working before you try to sew something. So here's a little bit. Looks good. Thanks for watching my video on how to thread any sewing machine. If you have any questions or concern or any suggestions for another video, please put them down in the comments or email me or DM me. I'd love to hear from you.